Hello everyone, welcome to Better Birth 360. Today I'll be interviewing Cathy Daub, who is the president and founder of BirthWorks International, a nonprofit organization with certification programs for childbirth educators, birth doulas, and postpartum doulas. Cathy has been facilitating national and international childbirth education and doula workshops over the last 25 years. She is also a physical therapist, certified Maya abdominal massage therapist, certified in pelvic bodywork, and trained in techniques of myofascial release, all of which she incorporates into her workshops. She is the author of Birthing in the Spirit, A Human's Values Approach to Childbirth, which was listed in the Family Wellness magazine as one of the top 10 books to read on pregnancy and childbirth and doulas of love. She brings together her many talents when working with women, helping them to integrate the mind, body, and spirit when giving birth, and helping them to have more trust and faith in their body's innate ability to give birth. Today, Cathy will talk about how to promote a natural, instinctive, and positive birth experience. Before we start a conversation about that, Cathy, can you tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself and what inspired you to create BirthWorks International?
Sure. My daughter was born by cesarean in 1978, and then I had a VBAC, a vaginal birth after cesarean, in 1980. And I knew that it was safer to have a VBAC than a planned repeat cesarean. So my original goal was to begin educating women about the fact that it was safer in most instances to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. And then it developed into a program where we realized we had to try to prevent the first cesarean. So that women can have more positive birth experiences. But now it's sort of developed into like, well, even if you have a cesarean, how to make that a positive experience. But we want women to have a good memory about their births and know that they have made good, wise decisions along the way, because sometimes cesareans are necessary. So we want it to be a good experience for women, no matter which way it goes.
Okay, great. So Cathy, I understand that BirthWorks International has 4 core principles. They teach birth professionals on how to promote a natural, instinctive, and positive birth experience. Can you tell us a little bit about them and provide us some great ways on how to utilize them in practice?
Sure. Which ones were you referring to?
Okay, the first one, let's go over pelvic body work.
Sure. Pelvic body work is the most amazing thing that I think all pregnant women need to know. Women's bodies are born with the knowledge about how to give birth. Birth is instinctive. It's not something they need to learn. And in our course, we help them to have more trust and faith in that process, that their inner body wisdom that already knows how to give birth. So because the body already knows how to give birth, we still need to position our bodies so that we can make it easier for the baby to come through. We teach what's called the 4 optimal pelvic principles, optimal pelvic positioning principles. And each one I can go over with you. The first one is to keep your hips uneven. So that would be like a woman in labor climbing up steps, or marching in place, walking. And the whole purpose behind the pelvic body work is to help the baby to have more space inside the pelvis so that the baby can move into a position that's optimal for birth. So that's the guiding principle behind all of it. The second principle would be to keep the pelvis anterior. If you think about women in traditional countries, third world countries, they're maybe carrying like a water in their head or a basket. They're automatically standing very tall with their body. And when they're standing tall, that means their pelvis is anterior. We sit in slumped chairs watching our movies on TV. We do things that tilt the pelvis posteriorly, and that is not something that's conducive towards giving the baby more room to come through. So that would be a second principle. A third principle would be keeping your knees in labor, keeping your knees lower than the waist, because that allows the baby more room to, a larger angle between the superior brim of the pelvis and the mother's spine. It allows a bigger angle so the baby has more room to enter that superior aspect of the pelvis. And then the fourth one is to keep your knees in neutral position, not out in external rotation. Keep your hips in neutral. And the reason we do that is because it opens the pelvic outlet where the baby comes out. So we go into detail with different props that show how this all happens. One of the props that we use is called the baby way. And this is looks like this. It's a box that we manufacture in BirthWorks that shows that the superior brim of the pelvis is wider from side to side, but the middle brim is wider from front to back. So therefore, as the baby is coming through the pelvis, you can see here, I hope you can see, that as she comes through, the shoulders are the widest part. So the shoulder the baby has to turn 90 degrees to come through that superior brim. And when it comes down to the middle, the mid aspect of the pelvis, now the opening is wider from front to back. So what does the baby have to do? The baby has to turn again, the shoulders 90 degrees to come out. And the reason this is so important is because a mother might say, okay, why can I feel my baby's head here, but the baby's not coming through? It's because the baby has to rotate again, because it's wider from front to back than it is side to side. So this is a really wonderful, it's called the Baby Way. It's available on our online store in BirthWorks. And it's a way that women can really understand what we call cardinal movement. And that's how a baby fits through the pelvis. It's much better than trying to show a plastic model of a pelvis with a baby doll coming through. This allows the imagination to work and understanding the baby's rotating, it's rotating. This is why I have to keep moving my body, because I'm helping the baby to rotate also. And that's really important to avoid a dysfunctional labor.
That's good that you mentioned that, and that's a great example that you just used right there. I have a question for you. Let's say you have a client that is having a long and difficult labor, and they determine that the baby is in an occipital posterior position. What type of pelvic body work would you do to help the baby get into the optimal position?
Well, a lot of this comes in the childbirth education classes actually before labor begins. This is where we talk about the importance of keeping the pelvis anterior, helping the baby to get in a position that's more optimal to begin with. Maybe getting on hands and knees is really important. It really helps the baby to, if you're creeping on your hands and knees on the floor, you've got your hips uneven, you've got the pelvis forward, and the baby will gravitate towards the place where there's more space. So if we can, if we can get women to understand the positions to assume before they go into labor, like not sitting, like I said, back in soft sofas, but keeping themselves, for example, in a tall chair where they can keep their pelvis forward. That helps the baby enter the pelvis more correctly to begin with. Now, if the baby's already OP in labor, and the mother needs to know what to do, movement, move as much as you can. Hands and knees is one of the best ways. Use a rebozo, rock the hips back and forth. Really help to try to shift the baby so it can get into a better position. OP labors are more difficult. They are longer. They are to be avoided, if we can. So I think a lot of it is the prenatal education on how to hold your body so the baby can enter more correctly to begin with. But like I said, once you're in labor, then just keep trying to move as much as you can.
Okay, great.
Especially the hands and knees position.
Okay, great. So, Cathy, can you talk a little bit about primal health and maybe give the viewers, an example on how you incorporate that in your childbirth education classes?
Sure. Primal health is I would talk about the primal period. The primal period, as defined by Dr. Michel Odent, is the time from conception to the end of the first year of life. What he's showing is he's got a data bank on our BirthWorks website and also on wombecology.com that shows correlations of things that are happening in that primal period that affect our health as an adult. So this is very important that we take a closer look at what's happening in the primal period. An example would be, for example, mother-baby skin-to-skin contact. At the moment of birth. Let's not have the baby separated. At the moment of birth, the primal health explains it this way. There are two choices that the baby will have. One is nutrition, and one is protest and despair. So it's got an innate fetal agenda. It's been inside his mother for 9 months. And now it needs to continue being near his mother. It doesn't want to be separated. It needs to find the breast. It needs to think about surviving, to get food, and the colostrum and that skin-to-skin contact. So we need to make every effort that we can to make sure there is no separation of the mother and baby at the moment of birth. So that would be one example of something in the primal period that's very important. A mother, when I teach the BirthWorks workshops and we do our grieving and healing classes, one of the most common things I find is that it goes to the core of women who were separated from their babies. It's like if you take a baby monkey away from his mother, she'll try to kill you. You know, it's that primal feeling, that intense protection that a mother has for the baby. She wants to be able to hold it and protect it. When mothers are separated, it really is something that's very difficult for them to handle. So it's a very important concept, this primal health period, to help the baby feel warm, that this is a safe world that it's come into and it's going to be cared for and loved. That kind of thing. And also, there's all kinds of research coming out about things that are happening in the primal period, or even in the 9 months when the baby's inside his mother. For example, small for gestational age is something that could be stress-related in pregnancy. It could be lack of good nutrition. And there's new evidence coming out now that that is where some of the cardiovascular diseases are a higher risk because of small gestational age. So we need to really take a good look at how can we keep a mother happy and how can we keep her healthy in her pregnant state, because that will help grow a stronger baby.
I'm just thinking from a physiological point of view, how stress can affect small for gestational age baby is when a mother's stressed, so that releases cortisol, and cortisol actually causes vasoconstriction of the blood vessels, okay?
Right.
So have you ever been stressed and your hands get cold, your extremities get cold? Well, the same thing. I'm thinking that the uterus, I'm thinking that's not a vital organ when you're in fight or flight, right? So if you're in a constant stress, that's going to cause vasoconstriction of the blood vessels, and that's going to be less blood, oxygen, and nutrients for the baby. And if the baby gets less nutrients, then you're going to have probably a small for gestational age baby.
That's it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I like breaking things down like that, so then it makes sense. And then when we share that with the birth partner, that's a very important key that I want to talk about too, is, you know, during the prenatal time, do you talk or do you educate the birth partners on how to create an environment where they're promoting oxytocin, creating love and intimacy prenatally to promote a healthy and happy baby?
Absolutely. There's a very, very important exercise that we teach in our workshops. And I can do that with you just now because it would be a really good little exercise. Suppose I ask you to make a fist with your hands, okay? And make a very tight fist. And tell me where you feel the tension going in your body as you squeeze your fist. Is it going up your elbow? Where else is it traveling?
It's going up my forearm, and inside of my forearm, and then it's kind of going up into my neck.
Into your neck, right.
Yeah.
If you keep tightening your fist, and if it's in your neck, where else do you think it's traveling to from there?
To my head.
Okay.
I feel just in my shoulders. It's more primarily focused in my forearms, but then I feel it more kind of like in my traps, like right here, and kind of tight right here.
Right. So women in labor, they often are fearful of the next contraction, you know, that it's going to be very intense, you know, how they can hold up through this contraction. So the partner, if he can take your hands, like if you open your hands now and just keep them open, and now try to tense up a part of your body and sustain it.
But not my hands, something else?
With your hands completely open and relaxed.
Okay.
If they're completely open and relaxed, you'll find it very hard to actually tense up a part of your body and keep it tense and sustain it.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's pretty amazing.
So really what happens, that one of the best things for partners to know that we teach is that just whenever contraction's coming, hold their wife's hands or their partner's hands and keep them open and relaxed, and open and relaxed, because then she can't tense her body so easily. And at the same time, he can be looking in her eyes and sending, you know, energy of love. And you can do this. You're a strong, powerful woman. All with the eyes, without even having to say anything. It can be a message through the eyes, because the less we say to women in labor, probably the better able they are to have access to their primal brain, where the knowledge about how to give birth already resides. So this is something that we show the partners. Just hold her hands and keep it relaxed and open. The stronger the contractions, the more open and loose her hands are. And, he's there grounding her, helping her to feel loved, and, giving her the strength that she needs to go through the contraction.
So if she feels loved and supported and protected, that will help facilitate a more efficient and less painful labor. Would you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. And what happens is that because she's now, when she's relaxed in her body, because when her hands are open, she's more relaxed, her breath is slowing down, she's feeling more calm, and that's where the oxytocin can be produced that helps the uterus to contract and gets her labor going. So that has like a very physiological basis to it. The more calm you can keep her. There's a very important concept, one that you can't really access fear and love at the same time in the human body. You're either in one or you're in the other. So, if a woman's in fear, then there's less, she can't be in a position of love. And if she's not where the love is, then you don't have the oxytocin, the love hormone that's helping labor to progress. So it's very important that we do everything we can to help her feel safe and secure. I would say that the question that any doula or midwife or partner, all people who are around there on the birth scene, they should be asking themselves one question, and that is, what can I do to keep the oxytocin flowing? What can I do? Because that's where it's at. The more calm we can keep her, the more her body can instinctively know what to do and carry forth. If she's tightening up and tensing into the contraction, then it's almost like she's fighting it instead of opening and relaxing to it. If you think of fear, it's more of a constricting kind of inward energy. Mm-hmm. And she's going to be birthing a baby. She's got to open up her body to really allow this baby to come out. We want her to be breathing slowly and deeply from the beginning all the way to the end. And her partner can hold her hands and just say, just not even say anything, just holding her hands and helping them to relax, reminding her. And if they know this in their prenatal, in their childbirth education classes, and actually taking these classes early, in the first trimester of pregnancy, is the best thing to do. Because they have time to process this information and to practice some of these techniques.
Would it be okay for the birth partner to say, hold her hand and say, I love you, you're doing
Absolutely.
great, what are other words that you use for positive affirmations that, will help her relax?
I have a belief that we talk too much.
Oh, okay.
With the labor. So there's a thing called the meta message. The meta message means that 10% of what you say is what's heard, 90% is taken in through other ways, your facial gestures, your body language, things like that. So few words, very short words, if they say anything, wonderful, beautiful. But even that, the ability, there's a concept called entrainment. Entrainment means, if I'm about 3 to 5 feet away from you, what I feel is what you're feeling. You'll know if I'm being calm or if I'm being anxious and worried. You can sense that when you're that distance away from me. So when he's with her and the doula is there or the midwife, if they can all have this feeling of joy, happiness, smile. Because it's contagious. If she sees a frown, she might feel, oh, something's wrong, and she might guard. But if she sees people smiling and it's a joyful, this is the birth of a baby, then this is felt by her. So you don't have to say very much. You can smile, send messages, pour love energy into her, and let her have the experience of getting into her primal brain. That means quieting the neocortex, the thinking brain. You don't want to stimulate that. And the things that stimulate the neocortex are like bright lights, or things like privacy. When there's no privacy, if she's feeling observed, that will stimulate the neocortex. Privacy means not feeling observed, so as long as she doesn't feel observed. And no rational language. What if, because rational language stimulates the neocortex as well. What if somebody says to her, even her partner or the midwife or whoever, well, was that contraction stronger than the last one? That is stimulating the neocortex. And the stimulation of the neocortex is a break in labor. So you really want her to be able to have access to the primal brain, which means quieting the neocortex and allowing her to get into that part of her body that already knows how to give birth. And then instinctively, she will do what she needs to do.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Cathy. So now let's go to human values. Can you talk a little bit about that and share some effective ways to incorporate that into your childbirth education class?
Sure. It's the core.
Okay.
It's the core of what we do. When we talk about, there are 5 primary human values: truth, right action, peace, love, and nonviolence. So truth is that which is infallible. It's that which does not change in the 3 periods of time. It is true for all time, the past, the present, and the future. So you might say to yourself, well, in life, maybe one infallible truth is that we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. Nobody's going to argue with that. That's just it's an infallible truth. So applying that to birth, it would be that all women are born with the knowledge about how to give birth. How else could we have populated the earth for thousands of years if that wasn't true? Women are born with this knowledge, and I think that today they've forgotten this. And we just really need to repeat it over and over again in our childbirth education classes, that your body knows how to give birth. It just let it be your guide. So truth is that which is true for all time. Suppose, and then the second value is right action. But let's suppose that there's a woman who doesn't believe in her truth. Maybe she doesn't think that her body knows how to give birth. What do you think her action's going to be?
She's probably going to say, well, I'm fearful of having a really uncomfortable labor, and I want to get an epidural.
Right, exactly. But a woman who believes in her truth, that she knows that her body knows how to give birth, she's more likely to go into birth with more confidence and able to access her coping resources more easily. So we spend a lot of time really talking about how can we get women to believe in this truth, that their body already knows how to give birth. Women, when they hear this, at first, they sort of think about it, and then we say it again, we say it again, we say it again, and they start to realize, oh, my body's so wise. It already knows how to do this. It knows how to grow a baby, knows how to grow a male or a female, and the wonders of the human body are amazing, So, and the uterus is this powerful muscle. As a physical therapist, I love the uterus because it's the most powerful muscle, that it can contract so strongly in order to help, get the baby out. That's one amazing muscle.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
really to think about reframing things, to help women look at the human body with some awe and wonder at how amazing it is and what the power is that's in there and what it can do. So that's truth, right? And the right action. When you have truth and right action in synchrony with each other, you have what's called integrity. That means what you say is what you do, okay? If you say one thing and do another, you set up conflict in the body. And then how can you have the third human value, which is peace? And when you have peace, then you're more likely to be having more oxytocin because you're more calm and connected, and you feel better about yourself and everything around you. So truth and right action leads, when they're in synchrony with each other, then it leads to a feeling of peace. When you have peace, love just starts to flow like a spring from the earth. How many women have had more than one baby and they were afraid that they weren't going to be able to love their second baby as much as their first? But then they find that there's just so much love to go around. And love is so connected because it's our oxytocin. It's our love hormone. So it's present in every major system of the human body. It's present in the digestive system, the metabolic system, the nervous system, the reproductive system. It's present everywhere. And so we are truly beings of love because this love hormone is in us, and we feel better when we are calm and when we have peace. So, it's a very important hormone to recognize. And this, especially for a woman in labor, it's important for her to be feeling this peace so that her body can do what it needs to do. Then you have the love, of course, which I said just continues to flow. And then if you have love, how can you have violence? You have nonviolence. In birth today, we have so much violence going on. Things that are said, things that are done. Like you look too small your pelvis looks like it's too small to deliver a baby. Prenatally, they might hear this, or in labor, they might say you're not dilating fast enough. There's lots of things that are said that decrease the confidence in a woman. But if she goes in with these 5 values and practices them, it leads to increased confidence and decreased fear. And that is more likely to bring her to a positive birth experience. So this is the way we approach the human values. But I want to say something about this calm connection, oxytocin. Even though it rises from the beginning of conception all the way to the time that the baby is born, in the mother and the baby, the oxytocin is increasing. At the end of labor, there's a paradoxical effect of the oxytocin. And that is that now adrenaline starts to come in because the body needs to do the work of getting the baby out. So she will start to exhibit signs of this fight-flight kind of language. I call it the adrenaline language because now she'll say, I do anything, get the baby out, I can't do this anymore. But if prenatally she anticipates that this is something that's a language of the adrenaline that's coming, that she just needs to say it. But, it doesn't mean somebody has to do something, but she just needs to say it because it's the language of her body at that point when the adrenaline is there. So understanding, expecting, anticipating, these are very important things for women to know in labor.
When the birth partner is taught this too, then he can stay more grounded, especially during the transition stage and her adrenaline's pumping and stuff like that. Because
right.
Then he'll be thinking, okay, we went over this and I'm ready and I'm going to stay grounded and
right.
all eyes on her, be supportive and show my love and attention with my eyes and with my heart and just give everything to her, give all my
right.
attention to her and support.
Right.
Yeah.
And so another example of that is that he knows ahead of time that, when the woman has reached full dilation, that there's going to be a rest and be thankful stage. It's when the contractions begin to slow down a little bit, but it's not a failure to progress. It's not that labor is not progressing. It's just a normal time when the baby's getting ready for the final exit. And so he won't be nervous about it because he'll know that it's normal. So when you know something is normal, then you're less likely to be afraid of it and be worried about it. So.
Exactly. So let's talk about grieving, healing, all of which helps birthing parents to make safer choices in pregnancy and birth. Can you talk about that?
Yes. In BirthWorks, we talk about the grieving, but we also do the grieving. So we take a deeper step. We find that it helps to facilitate normal labor. Because if a woman has had a traumatic experience in a previous birth, then when she gives birth to her next child, if she hasn't resolved that experience to any degree, then she may be more likely to have it be something that, disturbs her labor for the next child. So we actually talk about the stages of grieving, the social, the physical symptoms, the actual stages, and then we ask if there's anybody who has anything they would like to talk about from, another birth that was traumatic and still hurts inside. And we will actually give them a chance to talk about it. The compassion that's felt in the room with the birthing couples, and it's almost like when somebody tells their story, it's so intimate that it almost touches, well, it does touch everybody else in the room, and sometimes it helps them resolve something that happened to them by hearing what happened to somebody else, and they realize that they're not alone, that there's other people who have had some of the same kinds of feelings, and they grieve, they cry, they really feel lighter when they leave, because we as human beings are meant to have energy moving through our bodies, not to get stuck. So if we can help release some of those grieving energies, or the energies that are hurting inside, and help them to flow out, just to express it, that's very important. And to do this, we have to create a very safe place for the people in the room. And this happens from class 1. We create a very safe place so they feel safe expressing their deepest fears. They feel safe when something happened to them in labor from a previous birth. And this helps, like I said, to facilitate a normal labor.
So if you have an example where a mother was doing a home birth and there's something happened, there was a complication, and then she was separated temporarily from the birth partner or midwife because they're getting everything ready or whatever, and she has this intense feeling of guilt of feeling like she she wasn't able to have the birth that she wanted, and psychically that is like imprinted on her. What kind of things would you do to unimprint that from her psyche? You know, because that's something that's now with her. Do you say, well, you shouldn't acknowledge the feeling, don't have any attachments to that? I'm just curious, like, what type of work would you do with a mother that experienced something like that? Maybe she has PTSD or something from this experience.
Well, we talk about the idea that everyone, and I truly believe this, that everybody is doing the very best they can at every given moment, based on the information, based on the situation. That they're always making the best decisions they can at that moment, and so that they can feel good about whatever happens, because it happened. Maybe it was meant to happen, and maybe it's one of life's lessons that is teaching us about something, and to praise her for all the good things that she's doing, and help her to keep some of that confidence through her, so she doesn't feel like she's a victim or anything like that. So just praising her, bringing her joy, helping her to feel like she really did the best she could, and that what could she learn from this experience? It will make her a better person. It will make her a stronger person. I mean, that happened to me. I had a cesarean with my daughter, and I'm looking back on that. It was part of the reason that BirthWorks got developed as an organization. So I'm grateful that I had this experience that has led me to where I am today, and I think that's a healing thing for women to hear.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. So, Cathy, can you share with the viewers some effective ways to develop more confidence in the birth process and their decision-making skills? I think we kind of already went over that with the truth and the right action. Is that kind of like what we would be talking about?
Yeah, and this, you can take these values to very deep levels, because when somebody is practicing the human values, they have more clarity of vision. When they have more clarity of vision, they have improved character also, and increased self-confidence. And you put all that together, it really helps to make the decisions they need to make. They're getting the knowledge that they need, and then they're looking at how they can apply that knowledge to a given situation. And really, like I said, when they believe in, it's really a lot about believing that they know how to give birth, and taking that as the foundation point. But the practice of human values is empowering, and it's transforming in nature. They will, in not only just birth, but in life. So this is a life skill also.
And that's, I'm glad that you brought that up, because the 6 is a new 4, where 6 centimeters is a new 4 in active labor. Now, not all, let's say they have a hospital birth, and you have an obstetrician that still kind of uses the 4 as a failure to progress. Now these clients are going to be educated. They're going to have evidence-based research, and they're going to look at all their options, and then they say, well, the 6 is a new 4, and we decided that we want to labor a little bit longer without having any medical interventions. If there's no risk to me and my baby, I don't want to have any medical interventions. And then they can stand tall and proud that they did the right thing, and then there's no fear of thinking like they made a bad decision.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Cathy, is there anything else that you'd want to talk about that we haven't addressed in this interview? Maybe sharing some amazing takeaway or aha moments that you've learned along the way as a birth professional yourself. What would be some things that you would want to share with other birth professionals?
I think one of the aha moments for people in our classes, the birthing couples, and also for birth professionals, is understanding that the pelvic outlet is really quite large. Lots of women go into labor believing it's like this big, but it's really quite large. And when they understand what the diameters, the horizontal and vertical diameters are of the actual pelvic outlet, they'll see it's like the size of a small grapefruit, and that's plenty of room for a baby to come out. So we actually go through in our pelvic body work, talking about, how big that outlet is, and how position of like a deep squat is not a good idea at all, because it goes against the principles of optimal pelvic positioning. So when they understand and feel their own pelvis, like we have them feel their own pelvis and how it moves and how it works for them, so they can understand where there's more space and how that helps them. So that's like an aha moment for many women, understanding that. Also, I think that it goes back to the pelvic body work again. When we go through it all, they will understand that lying on your back is the absolute worst position for a woman to be in labor. It goes against everything. The pelvis is posterior, the hips are even instead of being uneven, and then women are made to pull their knees up, and they don't understand that also narrows the pelvic outlet, and basically they understand that lying on the back, the birth canal is not positioned in such a way that makes it easy for the baby to come out. I have this other little thing right here. I can just show you like this.
Okay, great.
This is just like a little tube, and you can see the baby here in the middle. Do you want to be in a position where you have to push your baby uphill? How's the baby going to get out? It has to go uphill. But if you turn it this way, it just comes out. So, getting your body in the position, the baby knows how to be born, how to come out, but you have to put your body in a position that makes it easier for it, so the mother doesn't have to get so exhausted. So these are like little demos that we do that are aha moments for lots of women in terms of realizing that their body knows how to give birth, and actually babies are supposed to come out the back. We have all these images of women trying to give birth out the front, but when you try to give birth out the front, then you're working against gravity, and it exhausts the mother, and maybe then she needs some drugs or she needs some medical procedures. It doesn't have to be so difficult. That's the message. That if she gets her body in correct positions that make it easier for the baby, and when she has knowledge of like the baby way, how the baby's turning each way, and she's communicating with her body. She's not trying to distract herself from it. She's actually working with her body. That is, I think that those are aha moments for a lot of women.
So, Cathy, can you tell me a little bit more about pelvic body work and the importance of not laying on your back during birth?
Sure. Lying on your back in birth violates the 4 principles of optimal pelvic positioning. So, lying on your back, your hips are even. It's very important for hips to be uneven. That makes more space for the baby to come through. When you're lying on your back, you also have you're lying on your sacrum, and your coccyx is also, you're lying on your coccyx. Your sacrum needs to be up out of the way so the baby can come down under it. So that's why you want to keep the pelvis anterior also. That helps to make more space for the baby to come through. When a woman's lying on her back in bed, she has a posterior pelvis. She's lying on her sacrum, she's lying on her coccyx, and she can't move that part of the back. Her body wants to move that part to help bring the baby down, but she's lying on it, impeding that descent. So that makes it a more difficult birth. And then you've got women, when they're lying on their back, typically at the moment they're trying to give birth, the doctors will have them pull their knees up, way up in stirrups or up and out, so they can push.
Knees to chest.
Yeah, right, exactly. But if you believe you have to push your baby out and you have to use your abdominal muscles that's bringing the baby out the front, and actually babies are supposed to be born out the back. So you want the anterior pelvis, you want the flaring of the hips outward, and lying on your back, you just can't accomplish that. So the knees are higher than the waist when you're pulling your knees up and out. So you want the knees lower than the waist so the baby can enter the pelvis well. And then finally, you have hips in neutral position. Because when a woman's lying on her back, typically they not only have her knees up high, but they also have them spread way apart. And actually that narrows the horizontal diameter of the pelvic outlet. So it makes it harder for the birth. If women could go into positions that would be good, like hands and knees positions or standing with a squat bar, even lying on their side, some lying on your side. If a woman can't be upright anymore, she can lie on her side, but let's make sure that her top leg is lifted up and back so that the pelvis moves forward.
So can you share with us an experience that you had when you went to a birth as a doula and you went to the hospital? Kind of share with your experience and how you interacted with the obstetrician to labor with her on her side and lifting her leg up and pulling it back to get to birth the baby. Because most, like I said, most births that I've seen in a hospital, the doctor's there, and they're birthing on their back.
Right. And so I was called into the hospital for a birth, and the woman had already had an epidural in place, and I was told that she was 4 centimeters dilated and that her baby was in a transverse position. So what I'm thinking is that I've got to get her pelvis moving. She's just been lying still and on her back all night. So I explained to the mother who was there and to the woman herself that, it'd be really good for her and the baby to move her hips and move her pelvis. So I got her into a sideline position and began rocking her pelvis back and forth. And then after a while, we moved her to the other side. We rocked her pelvis back and forth in that position. And then I asked the nurse if we could get her up into a hands and knees position, even though she had the epidural in place. We helped her get into that position with her hands up on the front of the bed. And in that position, I was able to also rock her pelvis back and forth. Now we have uneven hips, which is a principle of optimal pelvic positioning, and we have her in a position where her pelvis is more anterior. It allowed the baby to make some changes in position. Rocked her, rocked her, rocked her, rocked her. And then we got back down. When she was tired of having her hands up here, we got her back down her side, rock that pelvis back and forth there, turn to the other side, rock that pelvis back and forth there. And basically the obstetrician came back in and had this kind of curious look on her face when she looked at some of the monitors and things, and she did the exam, and the woman was, the baby was in occiput anterior position, and she was 9 centimeters dilated. So the obstetrician was very impressed already with the change that had happened in a fairly short period of time. And so the woman, I asked if we could keep her in that left sideline position with her leg up and back to give birth, and she agreed to it, and that's an hour and a half later her baby was born.
That's amazing.
So the real key thing here is getting women moving. You've got to keep the pelvis moving, and it can prevent most any kind of a dysfunctional labor if you keep the pelvis moving and keep her upright.
Okay, great. Another question I wanted to ask you about is, can you tell us a little bit more about mother-daughter relationship and how that can impact a mother's birth experience?
Sure. In the workshops I teach, I so often find that mothers and daughters are not having very good relationships. They're struggling for various reasons. And basically, what I find that birth is this optimal time when it's a rite of passage for the mother, and she's going to have a baby. She wants her baby to love her, but what if she doesn't love her own mother? And what is, something, and what kind of a role model is that for her child? So we talk about what a mother-daughter relationship is and what it can be. I invite people to go and talk to their mothers about their births and find out some information and share some things. There are times when mothers have really difficult situations, such as mental illness, or maybe there was an adoption, or a mother gave up a child for adoption, or if there's alcoholism. There's all kinds of things that mothers are suffering from. But I suggest to the women that there was a time for 9 months when you shared the same cells, and if it wasn't for your mother, you wouldn't be in the world here today. So we need to have a respect and love and honor our mother, even if it's just for that, even if her situation now is not one that the woman can be close to, but at least be grateful for that. There's a study that was done that I share with people. It was in the book called Love and Survival by Dr. Dean Ornish. And these were studies that were done 50 years ago on men who attended, say, Harvard. And they asked them how they felt about their mothers. Did they feel, or the mothers and their fathers, do they have good feelings, not such good feelings? But the interesting thing is that they followed these people for 50 years, and they found that the additive value of people who had negative things about their mother and father was that 100% of them, the additive value was 100% that had life-threatening disease by midlife. So I think that, we need to have love and respect for our parents. We need to find a way to not be a victim of a relationship that's going to hurt us. And I try to impress on women the importance of finding a way to not harbor ill will towards their mothers, or for whatever reason that they're struggling right now, but to find a way to forgive them. And even if it means writing a letter, and even if it's not sending the letter, doing something where you can come to a place of being grateful they brought you in the world, and a place where you can forgive and let go and love.
And you know what? When you do that, you're energetically letting go of a really strong negative emotion, and that's gonna, that's gonna emotionally and energetically, you're imprinting that release onto the baby. I mean, I strongly believe that your emotions impact, the development of your baby. I mean, you can have positive and negative emotions, and that can impact the health and welfare of your baby even after it's born. So it's kind of like energetically just clearing your body out of all unresolved frustration, anger, resentment, grief, everything that you could possibly do, because that's going to benefit you and the baby. Right.
And so coming to a place of peace about a relationship with their mother, I think, is very important for women who are pregnant, and also for the partners. Then they also, need to do things that help keep their wives happy, because then she'll produce hormones of joy. And that's the first experience that the baby's having. So that's another part that the partner can do, not only in the pregnant state, but also during labor, to keep their wives happy. This is a really good time to have a healthier child in mind, body, and spirit by helping to keep her happy.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Cathy. So for the viewers that would like to learn more about the topics we discussed today, do you have any DVDs, books, upcoming workshops, webinars, or conferences that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, we're holding a conference in October 14 through 16 in 2016. It's going to be in New Jersey, near the Philadelphia area. The title of the conference is Finding the Truth About Birth. So it'll cover a lot of different topics that are under that. We hold workshops across the country and also international. We're always looking for people who want to host us a workshop. So if they want to host us an ACE workshop, that's our Accelerated Childbirth Educator Doula program. It's a 4-day workshop. You save time and money, because instead of attending 2 3-day workshops, like one 3-day educator workshop, one 3-day doula workshop, now you can attend one workshop that's 4 days and count as towards your certification. So, and the other nice thing about that is that the childbirth education is so crucial. Why wait till 7 months to start learning, choosing a birth team, or how to eat well for your baby? These things need to start early. So if you're teaching when you're teaching the classes, they should be held early, and then you're going to have birthing couples in the class that say, "Oh, I'd really like you to be my doula." So having the combined certification is really a popular thing right now. And then we are starting our postpartum doula program is a completely online program, no workshop needed, and we're looking forward to getting that off the ground, probably beginning the end of September, beginning of October. And so we have those things happening, and we, inviting people more women in this country need good, high-quality childbirth education. So we want more women bringing us out for these workshops so we can, share the things that I'm talking with you about today.
Okay, great. Cathy, do you have a website for the viewers so they can go to find out more information about the topics we discussed in our interview today?
Yeah, we have. You can go to www.birthworks, BirthWorks.org. And also on our website, we have a place where you can sign up for our free newsletter. It's viral, and we publish that quarterly, so you can keep in touch with what we're doing in BirthWorks and become part of the BirthWorks family.
Okay, Cathy, thank you for chatting with me and also sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. It was a joy.
You're welcome.